evening, everyone. I wouldn't so much call myself a poet, I'm a prose, so we're gonna take it down a little bit. My book is called Carla's Rivet, and I just published this March 1st, and 2 weeks after, that was when Mr. Boyd was shot. And I had people contacting me going, how did you know? I'll just read the back real quick and then I'll get into it. I'm just gonna read a few pages from one of the chapters. The back of the book goes, Carla Flores, a homeless ex-cop, is living her nightmares. Her mind, a juxtaposition of real life, night terrors, and cocaine, leaves her isolated on the streets of Albuquerque. She constantly struggles to rid herself of the memories that overlay her waking hours. A traumatic shootout during a case of mistaken identity, and being overpowered and taken hostage while her partner lay dying. The dangers of the long nights seem ready to swallow her completely until she's found by an unlikely companion, a stray dog named Rivet. Carla's only salvation in a city that has forgotten her walks on 4 feet, a lifeline out of the darkness and into the light. And so the chapter I'm going to read from is chapter 11, the emergency room. And the reason I'm reading this, the royalties that I get from this book, the way that I try to help heal my city is giving back. So 15% of this goes to, 5% goes to Project Share, 5% goes to Albuquerque Heading Home, who help house the homeless for free. And then 5% go to Pets of the Homeless, which offers food and medical care for the dogs that you see that are out there helping their owners get by. So this is from the chapter Emergency Room. There's a sharp scent of industrial cleaner mixed with body odor as I enter the emergency room. A few panicked people glance over at me, hoping I'm their moral support, but they look right through me in the seconds they realize I'm only a homeless woman scuttling through the door, a shadow clouding the light. The room is half filled. Some people sit watching the television in the corner, reading the closed captions as they roll across the screen. Others hunch in agony over their wounded bodies, oblivious to everything but their personal pain. In the far reaches of the waiting room are a few people who are utterly out of place in their dirty clothes, and I know where I'll be taking my seat once I've checked in. I get to the intake window where a nurse looks at me with patience as thin and transparent as cellophane. I point to my nose. I can't stop the bleeding. Do you have insurance? She asks in a voice dripping with sighs. No, I'm homeless, I say, hoping that no one else hears me and it will end all the other questions she's about to ask before she gets to them. What's your address? What's your phone number? Who is your next of kin? I realize I look the part, and anyone with a brain can guess my situation, but it still hurts to admit it out loud. Saying it out loud makes it more real than living it. I have nowhere and I have no one except an angel only I can see as an angel. I suppose that gives me a little more than most other people have, even when they have everything. Do you have a way to pay? She asks, looking at me with tired eyes. I know she's been here all night, and I know she's been instructed to ask me a question to which she already knows the answer. I shake my head and watch her hold back her sigh. I know I'm not the only one in here that can't pay. I'm not the first, and without a miracle, I won't be the last. I glance around myself and try to swallow down the facts as the rest of the world sees them. I am subhuman. I am not worth helping. Is it just your nose? The nurse asks, her voice breaking through my thoughts. I think so, I answer. What happened? James Padilla punched me in the face because he said I stole a dog from someone. The nurse scribbles on an intake form. What's your name? Carla Flores. Okay, Carla, please have a seat and we'll get you back to triage when we have an opening. We're pretty busy and extreme emergencies have priority. It could be a while. I nod my head. I already know I could be here for hours. At the very least, I can sit in a safe place for a while and not have to worry so much about protecting myself. I wish Rivet could be in here with me. I hate that he wouldn't come in, but I wonder if he's here now. So far as I understand it, angels can do that, be invisible when they don't want to be seen. I've never asked him whether that's one of the things he can do. Maybe he can't and doesn't want to be mistaken for a real dog. I don't want to be mistaken for homeless, even though I am. I turn around and the bright flash of an ambulance light makes everything shift. Reality landslides to the ground and suddenly I'm standing outside of the Valles gas station. Ice shoots through my veins and my chest tightens. I can barely breathe. I hear the traffic on Bridge Boulevard. I see the yellow police tape fluttering. I smell the lingering gunpowder in my nose. Leto is laying there on the ground and EMS paramedics are thrusting coupled hands onto his chest to bring him back from death. People are standing there at the boundaries of the tape watching my Leto stay dead. I start pushing my way through them if I can just get the Leto. Excuse you, I hear, and I whip my head to look at a woman at my side. She has a bloody bandage held to her face and she looks upset. She waits, staring at me as though I'm supposed to do something. She snatches her arm away from me and I realize I've shoved her. Her eyes stay locked onto mine as if daring me to continue to look at her, daring me to do it again, and I drop my gaze to the highly polished floor. I'm sorry, I whisper. Ma'am, the nurse says from behind the glass partition. Please have a seat, we'll get to you as soon as we can. I nod and step out of the way. The woman rolls her eyes and pushes past me. When I look around, the emergency room is as it was, and I take in a long, quivering breath to steady my mind. There are plenty of open seats, but out of the corner of my eye, I see more than a few people putting their belongings beside them in the empty chairs. My shoulders slump, and I head toward the homeless people that huddle in an island of their own making. I don't recognize any of them, but I know they are like me. They're sitting together, looking much worse for wear than anyone else in this room. A man wearing a hole-filled sequin dress sleeps in his chair, his head on his hand and the skin of his gaunt cheek spilling over his palm. He snores occasionally, and with his eyes closed. I can see the heavy blue eyeshadow he wears. His legs sport a pair of pantyhose through which I can make out a tangle of hairs. He shifts and coughs, and the thinning orange mop on his head, stringing it out of place, jumps with each spasm. Beside him sits a man of medium build with black hair and a 5 o'clock shadow. He's dressed in faded black jeans with a faded black t-shirt over which hangs a dirty black jacket. He nervously jangles his leg up and down, impatiently waiting for something perhaps, and keeps his eyes on the muted television, reading the words in a constant whisper to himself. Last is a man who appears to be in his 70s. He is weathered, brown, and very short, with hair that is frizzed out and ear-length all around. He wears a pair of dingy jeans and a green plaid shirt, under which is a blue tee. He immediately reminds me of Jerry Garcia with the glasses he wears. A brown Jerry Garcia. He has kind eyes that dance with mine, and he gives a small smile. Hello, he says in a breathy, deep voice. Hi, sorry to stare. I'm used to it, he says and gives a smirk. What happened to your nose? He asks, lifting a thick, stocky hand to point at my face. I got punched. Jealous boyfriend? He asks. Everyone from the streets knows the violence women face when they decide to sleep outside instead of a shelter. The men they choose are sometimes in such deep pain they can't help but drown it with alcohol and be heavy-handed in the moments between sobriety and stupor. Sometimes even standing on the corner to earn money by holding a sign ends with propositions for a place to stay in exchange for favors, as though the women aren't asking for help, but asking for sex, as if the words on their signs are only code or innuendo. I'd written the stories before I ever came to the streets. Women who took a seemingly benign offer and got into a car never to be seen again. I brought the reports back to the detectives, but the truth was that those women were gone, vanished as if they'd never existed in the first place. They were only a moment in time, a body moving from point A to point B, corner to car, before they turned into a vapor trail. Their stories of hardship only known by the citizens of the street under a false name, and their stories of having a home known by a family that has long since disowned or forgotten them. I've been lucky for the most part, keeping my senses alert to danger. The only mistake I've made was sleeping in the wrong place, and that's when I was given an angel to intervene. I've had a few men try things, even before Rivet saved me, but I don't usually hang around where there's drinking or drugs or anyone I don't know without Jean or Rivet. I remember I was asked a question and shake my head. No boyfriend. A man I ran into a while back. I leave my response there as the man nods. I look down to his hand as he pushes it forward. I'm Frank Camaro. Frankie, who are you? Carla Flores. Flowers is what they all call me. Pretty. He shakes my hand heartily and shifts in his seat with a grunt. This is Tony and that is Jessie Bell. Tony makes no acknowledgement of even hearing us talk about him. He continues steadily reading the scrolling captions of the commercial break. He's a man, right? I ask, and nod at Jessie Bell's sleeping, snoring form. I'm not sure why I feel the compulsion to ask. It's pretty obvious, but I'm curious to know how Jessie Bell refers to him herself. She's as much a woman as she feels she is. I have no right to deny her identity. She got stuck out here after she turned into a party girl. Damn shame how they treated her. She got hooked on the blow and started in with the harder stuff, and they needed to pay for her habit. She prostitutes near San Mateo to get cash. Those perverts pick her up and take her to the cheap motels, get their rocks off, and beat her afterwards. She's nursing a couple cracked ribs and a hangover. Frankie looks sadly at Jessie Bell and shakes his head, his hair swaying like dandelion fluff. They say the same thing, though. It's not as big of an emergency as the others in here. I think it's a lie. I watch people look down on Jessie Bell all the time. She's got it pretty bad. Why? I ask. People get confused when others don't fit into the neat categories society says there should be. You know, man, woman, boy, girl, rich, poor, sick, well. It's like they only want things in 2 dimensions, one side or the other. It's easier not to think when things are split in two, I say, and think about my time as a cop. There were good guys and bad guys, and even then the line was blurred. We had the good guys doing bad things, and the bad guys helping us make cases. I looked to my lap in silence. Well, there's a whole lot of not thinking going on anymore. The world has lost its mind, if you ask me. Frankie smiles at me. I know you didn't ask. No one does. I just like to share my thoughts. I figure no one else can share them when I'm not here anymore, so I may as well share them with anyone who'll sit long enough to listen. I smile back, careful not to stare at him for too long. I don't know if I'll slip again and start seeing a face I really don't want to see, a face I can't handle seeing. I'd rather just listen to Frankie and learn his mind and live in someone else's reality for a little while. Thank you.